Hello, my name is Tracy Savage, national news anchor and reporter. Today, I will be asking and challenging the top executives of Realtor.com as to whether these threats to realtor commissions are overstated. I'll be asking them to share vital industry information and methods for responding to industry threats directed toward a vast national real estate audience.
Say no to real estate tariffs.
Mike, what is this threat? How pervasive is it?
Tracy, the reason for the threat is that the internet has increasingly become a treacherous online world. It allows powerful media companies, really for the first time, to use their money and influence to gate the real estate industry's access to consumers searching for homes and realtors online. These companies then in turn wish to sell access to these consumers to brokers and agents for 1/3 of their hard-earned commissions, effectively charging an online tariff, as Alan Dalton has so aptly labeled it. The internet can be gated for two primary reasons. One is that just in the last few years, consumers have overwhelmingly gone online to look for real estate. Today, more than 75% of consumers begin their search for real estate and for a realtor online. And even though that there are millions of sites online available to find real estate information due to the power of marketing, the power of new online brands, and new techniques, new marketing techniques, which can manage consumer behavior online for the first time. As a result of this combination of things, consumers go to only a very few places to begin their search for information. And this is primarily a handful of portals such as MSN, AOL, and Yahoo, and a couple of search engines, Google and Overture, to name a few. The consumers rely on these trusted sources to direct them where they need to go. However, it creates the opportunity for money and influence to effectively control the answers they get to their online questions. For example, who are the best realtors for me to work with? These online tariff companies intend to become the first point of contact for home buyers and home sellers. They plan to use their substantial, enormous media assets to, first of all, to insert themselves between consumers and realtors. Second of all, to convince consumers that they know who the good realtors are. In addition, they wish to convince consumers that realtors are badly overpaid and that realtors can afford to rebate a substantial portion of their commissions back to the consumers. And finally, they intend to convince realtors that they have no alternative but to depend on them for qualified online leads. Alan, since you've described this as a tariff movement, why don't you explain why?
Mike, before I comment, and Tracy, on the consequences, the intended consequences behind the use of these predatory companies regarding tariff, I'd like to acknowledge for our audience the significance of Mike Long as CEO of HomeStore and thus Realtor.com. Before coming to Realtor.com, Mike was the chairman of WebMD. And WebMD, as most of us know, is the foremost provider of medical services information on the internet. And Mike's vision for WebMD is going to be extended now to Realtor.com because the premise behind WebMD was to both protect consumer interest and the profession for physicians and medical people. And I'm very excited that that will happen also for Realtor.com if we win the war and win the right battles. Now, in terms of the battles, Tracy, without sounding too bellicose, it's very important that our audience understand that there's a definitional battle taking place. We hear countless realtors across the country talking in terms of their being willing to pay a referral to some of these portals of 20, 30, 35%. But it's really a tariff. And what these companies are doing, and it's very insidious and strategic, is that they're purposefully using the symbols and they're using the lexicon that we favor. It's like almost like somebody trying to attack the word love. So our industry loves the word referrals. In fact, Tracy, if you were in the real estate business instead of being a broadcast journalist, you'd probably have a business card at some point in time that would read, "I love referrals." So there's almost a primitive pull professionally to the concept of a referral. And it's similar to what some people do when they hunt. they like to mimic the sounds and the symbols of the prey that they're targeting, and that's what's happening in the real estate business right now. We have to be very careful not to allow these outsiders to define this premise in a way that disadvantages us.
Mike, can you provide for us an example of one of these tariff models?
Tracy, there are new companies being announced every day to take advantage of what they perceive as this huge online tariff model opportunity. There are hundreds of companies that are being formed, it seems like almost daily, to go after this opportunity. What's important is that when you see venture capital coming back to life and focusing in this area, what it means is that there are hundreds, if not billions of dollars, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars that are tracking behind market moves, hoping to capitalize on being the number 2 or number 3 in that particular market category.
Well, Alan, isn't the tariff model appropriate for the realtors hoping to capture incremental leads?
Tracy, at the beginning of the program, you indicated to the audience that you would look to ask questions that you believed realtors would ask. That question's right on the money, because realtors all over the country are asking us and asking themselves, why wouldn't I want to pay what they call a referral? This is business that I otherwise would never have had. So therefore, it's incremental business. But in fact, it isn't. Because every year there's a finite amount of buyers and sellers in America that are going to transact real estate. And unless somebody comes in and adds a valuable dimension by expanding the consumer base, then it's not incremental business. What it is somebody intercepting the normal process of people buying and selling, and again, imposing a tariff. Now, the stand that you take depends on where you sit. I can understand where one realtor at one time may think, well, wait a minute, forget about the industry, forget about tariffs. This is business I never would have had, and I want that commission someday. But what happens is that begins the epidemic that will never be stopped, because it won't just stay online, it will infect every single port of entry every consumer in America has regarding real estate, and that's why the industry as a whole has to resist this temptation.
And Alan, as you and I have discussed with the industry many times, a lot of realtors believe initially this is incremental business, and we know that over time it essentially cannibalizes their core business, and essentially a tariff will be then payable on all real estate business that's transacted. One of the solutions to this problem is the industry doing a much better job following up on consumer inquiries, whether it comes from Realtor.com or from their own websites.
Great point.
Because what we know is that because these tariff models are so lucrative, that they will follow up. In exchange for a third of the commission, they will follow up with the consumer, and they will endear themselves to the consumer, essentially ratifying the tariff position that realtors don't necessarily do a thorough job, and therefore you need us as intermediaries between you and realtors.
Why now? Why is this a greater threat than, say, just 2 years ago?
Well, Tracy, 2 years ago was an interesting crossing point in the industry. It was a crossroads, because that was the point in time when that more consumers started going online to look for real estate information that went to the offline world, such as the newspaper. These companies that are developing these tariff models were not interested in real estate 3 years ago and 4 years ago because the consumers weren't online yet. Because these are online companies. They are expert at managing consumer behavior online. So now they've waited for the opportunity when the consumers moved online, and that's why they're there now. Because now it's a good time to invest their money, because the return, the ROI, if you will, return on investment opportunity is so huge. And that opportunity wasn't available to them only 2 or 3 years ago.